In these times of uncertainty, it's all the more important that we keep collaborating, informing, and inspiring each other, so that we can be smarter and better tomorrow. Welcome to the Pak uit de Zwijger LIVECAST.
Yes, what's good, everybody? Very nice that you tuned in to another livecast of Infected Cities. My name is Yorgos Lazatis, and I will be moderating this session. And we got some amazing, inspiring guests later on. I will introduce them to you later on. But first, I want to tell something about this program, because this program was created by Pak uit de Zwijger and DutchCulture, and today is the 14th of, and now the last edition in the series called Infected Cities. Now, in this series, we will zoom in on different cities in Europe, and during these times where we can't travel, we can't hop on a plane, for example, we try to stay connected, and we do that via internet, via social media, etc. And today, we will speak with some people from the south of Europe, from Spain and Madrid to be exact. Together with DutchCulture, we searched for different city makers, and during this broadcast, the guests will give you an insight into their daily works and explain how they commit to making a positive impact in their city while COVID is still around. But first, I have someone sitting next to me in the studio. I would like to welcome my studio guest of the program, Maartje Bakker, who just returned from Madrid, where she worked as a correspondent for Dutch newspaper, De Volkskrant. Maartje, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, of course, it's very nice to have you here. You lived and worked for 5 years in Spain, in Madrid. We will come back to that. But first, for our non-Spanish viewers, let's start off with some facts and figures. Madrid, capital of Spain, has more than 3 million inhabitants and is one of the biggest cities in Europe. It is part of the community of Madrid with more than 6 million people, and here around 12,000 people have died since the beginning of the pandemic. And this is the highest number within Spain, because in Spain there's a total of 2.4 million corona cases, and in Madrid only there were about 500,000 corona cases by now, Maartje. That is, it's not very well. But you told me Madrid is a vibrant city and the cultural and artistic heart of the country. At the same time, due to the economic crisis resulting from COVID-19, thousands of people went and still go to different charities and food banks waiting in line. So before we start with the program, let's watch a fragment of the video made in Madrid last May, June, by the Spanish artist Santiago Sierra, called La Gran Fila, translated the Big Line. Yeah, we only have shown a short fragment, but it counts total more than 800 people in the hunger queues. What is your reaction watching this video, Maartje?
Yes, well, of course, I knew about this phenomenon of the hunger queues because I read a lot about them. They were represented a lot in the media. And what I find interesting about this way of showing the queue is that you don't see the faces of the people.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been much more difficult to film the faces of the people who are in the hunger queues because very many people were ashamed to be there. You must imagine that many people never had to ask for food. And now for the first time in their lives, they suddenly lost their incomes or they found themselves without the money to buy enough food. So they had to ask for basic foods like potatoes, rice, and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's interesting to represent them this way, to show in a way their shame of being there.
Yeah. It's very emotional while just watching these images, and personally I like the black and white contrast. But they need like primary stuff like food, and I think the south of Europe. I'm Greek, so we come up for our own stuff, for our own rights, but also like we're very taught on doing stuff. Isn't that difficult for the Spanish people at the moment to reach out for stuff?
Yes. Well, yes, of course it's difficult, but you have to imagine that many of these people they are immigrants. So, and also for them it's difficult to be there, but you cannot see the faces. But I went there to talk to them as well. And I found out that many are immigrants as well. And I think for immigrants, it's always more difficult to be far away from their families. Maybe they have nobody to rely on, or many people were homeless as well, of the people who were in the hunger queue, at least in the one that I visited.
You have the center and the suburbs.
Yeah.
Like I told before, we spoke about it earlier. You worked there for 5 years. How are the different groups or communities or neighborhoods affected by the coronavirus at the moment?
Well, yeah, this has a lot to do with the economical situation of the people, of course. And I think that the working class people are living more in the outskirts of Madrid. So, yeah, there you find people that don't have the social security net that people with better jobs do have. So, yeah, the crisis affected them a lot, and a lot more than people who have decent jobs or regular jobs, and
what were the
this social safety net?
Yeah, the visible impacts on the pandemic on the city. Can you tell something about that?
Well, I think the hunger queue we saw is one of the most striking visible impacts of the economical crisis. Yeah. Well, but beginning when COVID began, the first visible impact was that we had a lockdown in Madrid.
Yeah.
And
it was a very strong lockdown.
It was a really strict lockdown. You really could not go out of your house. If it not, you could go to work and you could go to the supermarket, but that was all. Children, they could not leave their houses. Yeah. So it was, the atmosphere was really strange and heavy as well.
Yeah.
It was like a ghost town. So if you talk about the visible impact, this was it. It was visible like that, and then.
And was there also a difference how the people were affected by the crisis? Like, was there any difference? Like some people more than other groups?
Yeah. Well, in general, the people who had the more precarious jobs, they were affected more, and these people. Well, many immigrants fall into this group. So because there are some people who have irregular jobs, who don't participate in social security, and if they cannot go to work, they lose their jobs, and immediately they find themselves without any income. Yeah. And I think this is also true for the younger generation, because for many young people in Spain, they struggle to get a stable job. So they hop from one job to the other. And so for them, it was also hard to find themselves without an income and without a lot of help of the state. There were some sources of help, of course, but I think the people who are already struggling, they are struggling more if a crisis like this comes around.
Well, for now, I would like to invite Inma Ballesteros to the conversation. Inma is director of the Observatory for Culture and Communication that is part of the think tank Fundación Alternativas. Hello, Inma.
Hello.
Nice to have you in this first panel. About the current situation, can you respond to what Maatje said?
Well, yeah, it's true that the coronavirus pandemic has unmasked many of the ills of our society. In Madrid, many people were living on the edge of precariousness, and this pandemic has put it in front of our eyes. And it's important that the work of artists at Santiago Sierra helps us to discover the reality of the world in which we live. And this poverty is also impacted to people which work in cultural sector also. And as Fundación Alternativas, we have followed the evolution of inequality in Spain with a report that we do annually.
Yeah, because you've done a big report about that, right?
We have many reports. We have one of specifically on culture, and the other one, other of our reports are of inequality in Spain. That is a big problem here, and in all Europe, I think, and all the world. But we are following this situation in Spain. And you can find all these reports in our website for free. And during the pandemic, we have held a series of webinars to demonstrate the reality of these issues in different groups of citizenship. And I would like to emphasize that the pandemic had also forced to take decisions to the decision makers, and for example, in May 2020, the minimum vital income was approved, and in Fundación Alternativas, we was working a lot about this issue to explain to the society how that means, for people who has nothing or really nothing, and even maybe decision makers has taken many decisions or measures to the inequality, to stop the inequality, but we have a lot of work to do still.
Yeah, I believe that, definitely. But also you talked about decision makers and that they need to be innovative right now. They need to solve other types of solutions. I know that you try to reinvent yourself as well. So how is the cultural sector reinventing itself? And can you give a few examples that stroke you?
Well, the culture has been fighting very hard, by the pandemic, and was one of the areas who suffered the greatest consequences of coronavirus. But I think that digital environment has been dominated by cultural contents during this pandemic period, and generous creators and companies working for free in the digital ecosystem, even if theaters, concerts, and cultural centers, bookshops were closed, and this is, I think this is true that cultural activities were theoretically cover, because we are in Spain, we have a very big situation and difficult situation, because at the beginning of the crisis, the measures taken for was in general, not only specifically for the cultural sector. And it's true that this sector, the cultural sector, was covered by the general economic measures, but we need the specific ones for the specific problems of the sector. Right? The effective measures came only as a result that this agreement with different levels of administration.
Yeah.
And excuse me, could you repeat me the question, please?
Oh,
because
no, it was about...
You need some examples about the cultural sector working in this pandemic situation.
How the cultural sector is reinventing itself at the moment. And maybe you got some examples.
Yeah, of course I do. So I think one of the biggest effects of the pandemic was in the relationship with cultural operators and the audiences. No? Audiences have always been a key element in any cultural project, and this role has always been active and has influenced how cultural projects have developed now. And the digital medium is an universe still to explore, because this is the space. Well, during the pandemic, we all work in bringing possibilities that we have to be to discover still.
Yeah.
No? One of the initiatives I want to show is the small booksellers. They have suffered the crisis very strongly, and decided to carry out their own platform, and this is that was very important in Madrid, because 800 bookstores all together put on this platform, and it is something similar to the spirit of Don Quixote, growing in the face of difficulty, and I will to value these efforts too. And maybe some other decision that was taken in this period. I want to highlight the agreement between the Ministry of Culture, the regional government, and the City Council, with an mutual guarantee company to allow the small companies to access credits and cash flow to pay debts and their employees in the very beginning of the pandemic, because I think we are in another situation, because the pandemic is still doing a lot, no? And maybe the situation is another one, but that was in my opinion, that was a first step, very important for the beginning.
Well, I'm looking to Marci in the studio. Can you react on Inma?
Yes. Well, what I find interesting is what Inma said about the digital initiatives that you were seeing everywhere. Yeah. Because I as well, in Spain, I saw a lot of creativity rising during the pandemic as well. There were, for example, there were many musicians who also recorded their songs and worked together and made the best of this difficult time. So I saw these kind of initiatives as well. So
the conclusion is buy more books at your local bookstore and Spotify more, or your local artist making music.
That would be great.
That's a great conclusion. Well, Inma, thank you for your insight. Marci as well for the first panel. We will come to you later on. I'll come back to the both of you. Please stick around. You will not go anywhere. For now, we will go to the second part of the LIVECAST, and that's the creative responses in times of crisis. And I will do that with two great speakers once again. Now we will talk about what it means to be an artist in Spain, Madrid, during these COVID times, and what are their perspectives and experiences with this crisis. So to discuss this, I invite photographer Carmenchu Aleman and video artist, installation artist, and sculptor Fernando Sanchez Castillo. Let's start with this video with the work of Carmenchu first. Carmenchu, can I describe this as art in the purest form? Wow. It's amazing. Can you tell us what did we see and how did this work differ from what you normally make? Please tell us about that.
Okay, first, thanks for having me. Okay, usually I make a completely different work. I work in long-term projects for fiestas, rituals, and traditions in Spain and Portugal. And, you know, when lockdown arrives, I was not in Pamplona, I was not in Madrid, I was in Pamplona. And I decided to come back. And just from the first day, I was absolutely shocked because I live on city center, very close to Puerta del Sol. For me, it was the feeling that I have, I was on a completely different city. And this is what, about these new cities is what I want to speak. So the first picture, I made the first picture on March 14th. And for instance, this picture is about a man called Cinabrio, is made on Lavapiés neighborhood. And I was looking, I looked one window with snails, and I looked through the window and I saw him and he came to me.
Wow.
And after I spoke with him, and he told that he didn't have time, he didn't have enough money to change the window when it was broken. And he decided just to glue with silicone. And because it was so ugly, he decided to glue again the snails. So for me, it was the situation when I looked to him and I looked to this picture, it was how we felt during those days. We were like snails trying to escape, and we were glued to a window with silicone. Yes,
and that was about like March, April 2020, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
How was your experience of the city in general? Like, what do you want to express with the pictures that you made?
For me, it was like a feeling journey for me. I went out every day with my camera, and Madrid is really a vibrant city. Always there is 100,000 of people around the city on the streets, and to find out an empty spaces, I was absolutely shocked. And what I want to express on my pictures was my feeling. For me, everybody wanted to speak with me. On the windows, I feel that the windows wanted to speak with me. The walls, and also the few people I found out on the street. On the street, I just could find out people with homeless and people they don't have any place to go. So and they spend all the lockdown on the street. So I was feeling also maybe the silence. It was like to look at Skeleton City, and the silence was really it hurts me. And sometimes
because usually it's always vibrant, always cars and people.
Madrid is very noisy cities, full of bars, full of cafes, full of restaurants. Everybody's on the street, everybody's on the bars. So to be almost the unique person on those streets, it was shocking at the time. And as a photographer, I was shocked. And this is what I try to do with my project.
Yeah, you captured that a photo of that Mr. gluing his glass very well, and I found that a very beautiful story. You, Marcia?
Yes, the picture in itself is really beautiful, and now that you tell the story about this person, yes, it's very impressive. And in general, the loneliness of this time, because as a journalist, I also could go out in this time, and well, I experienced the same, but your pictures even make it more as if you can touch the reality of that time. Yeah. And some of the pictures, many people are lonely or alone or suffering, but some of them, they are together, and immediately you think, oh, there must be something very special, because this was a time when everyone was on his own. And so, for me, this was interesting that immediately you ask yourself, oh, these people that making their phone call or hugging each other, this must be a really important moment for them, because otherwise they would not be together.
Yeah.
The time was like that.
The picture that you see, there is a couple with talking with phone. It was really terrible, because I made this picture outside the Atocha train station, and they go down to the floor because they was receiving a call that her mother was dead by COVID. So I just found them, and they couldn't go up. So they were talking. This is one of the new situations. You can't be with your people. You can't be with your family. You can't be with the people which is dying, and you receive the news that your mother is dead just by phone. So it was just outside Atocha train station. And also I have another picture. I don't know if there is before that also in Lavapiés neighborhood. The first day that some cafes and restaurants were allowed to open, just to give some things take away, and Julio and this is the first time that Loreto embraced somebody which was Julio, since her mother died 1 month ago. So there were terrible situations even on the street, not just on the hospital. And also there are many people that I make photographs on these hunger queues. And also I photograph people coming from charity queues, also from the mosque in Lavapiés. They organize almost from the very beginning, giving eggs, giving a big bag, white bag with full of foods. And this queue started very, very early because there was a lot of people on the street without nothing to eat.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question later on, but for now I will go to Fernando. Hello, Fernando.
Hello, good afternoon.
You are an artist that works internationally. You travel often, and now Madrid became your field of study, right? So, what have you been working on these last couple of months?
Well, it's I was finishing some projects and observing how the city was changing and how the whole situation, the whole way the power also likes to commemorate this pandemic was acting. No? Which for me is very interesting how the processes of memory are being intervened by public institutions or public governors. Yeah.
So,
for instance.
How do you look upon the role of art and artists in this crisis?
Well, I think we have to be very critical and to be very aware to the pain, but also to the, like Carmencho was doing this thing that is a bit also pornographic. We don't want to see this. It's too real, too cruel. And at the same time, it's something that we have the duty of not to forget. I was also I was surprised because this is not the first pandemic we live. It's the first, let's say, global pandemic. But I'm now 50 years old, and I remember in the 80s, early 90s, the AIDS, which is still a pandemic that has no solution. And how all the resources here immediately are going to finish to combat in a scientific way, and but still we have these situations that we didn't learn from previous pandemics, like AIDS.
Definitely.
Like how are we going to be? How international solidarity is going to work in the planet is something we have to study and to continue.
I hope we will, Fernando. But if you look like there are a lot of effects of the pandemic, of the measures, of course. What can be if you look to the other side, what can be the positive time of living in 2021?
Of living in 2021 and living in 2020. It was a very introspective moment. No, we confronted the crisis, economic crisis. We confronted the risk of losing your life just with this invisible enemy or threat, and we had a lot of time to use our minds and to use culture as a positive, as the only tool we have to live in the planet, let's say.
Those are amazing words, Fernando. I will go back to Carmencho with one last question. What are you working on now?
I made a project. The first the first project was with the lockdown. The name was Stop Madrid, and after it's finished, I start with the new project, talking about again what's going on Madrid on the street. With a new way of living, because our life is different. Now we wear masks, we have to keep the social distance, and all this work. There is a good university in Spain, the University of Alcalá de Henares, which is making an archivo. Archivo is a place where you they are going to get all pictures made in Spain from the coronavirus, and I'm working on this new project, and this project is going to be to the Archivo COVID of the University of Alcalá de Henares.
Okay, wow, thank you very much, Carmenchu. Thank you very much, Fernando, for being here.
Thanks to you.
Please stick around. We will be here for the last part, the third panel. Marcia, before we go to the third panel, can you add something to this conversation?
Mm-hmm. Well,
maybe what we have seen with the photos of Carmenchu or what Fernando said.
Yes, it's interesting because the photos of Carmenchu, they talk of the most difficult time of the lockdown. But for me, after that time went on and Madrid changed again. So I would like to add, for me, of course, the lockdown was really a heavy time, but after that, Madrid was opening up again, and there were not as many people on the streets as normally. There was not as many noise. There was no pollution like we used to have, and so this is another side that it was a difficult time, but there were also beautiful aspects. People were taking with their bikes the big roads in the center of Madrid, where normally cars are going around. So, yeah, it has been hard, but also there are more beautiful aspects on this, on 2020.
And you will add something, because we spoke about it before we started with the show. You live nearby Media Lab.
Yes.
And we will talk about it now for the third and final part of this livecast. It's a panel on institutional initiatives with our last two speakers. So with this panel, we want to dive deeper into creative responses from cultural institutions in Madrid. So how did they adapt, and what alternatives did they come up with? I would like to welcome Laura Fernandez to the show, Coordinator Cultural Program at Media Lab Prado. Hello, Laura.
Hello.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this conversation.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And of course, we got Ronald Brouwer, who's Artistic Coordinator at Teatro de la Abadia. Hello, Ronald.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice. So let's start with Media Lab Prado. That is a citizens' laboratory that serves as a place of encounter for the production of open cultural projects. So anybody can make proposals or sign up for proposals made by someone else and carry them out on a collaborative basis. Before I start with a question, Laura, I want to watch this video for an impression of last year at the Media Lab.
Estamos en vivo. Sexta edición de Un año en un día en Media Lab Prado.
Nice video, nice music as well. So, Laura, last year you had a closed media lab and you had to adapt your program and activity. So you came up with something new, right? An experimental project and an experimental way of working. Can you tell us, what did you do?
Yes. So, of course, we had to think in new ways to develop our activity and following our goals as a public institution, as we are used to work in the face-to-face and take advantage of this encounter in the physical space to activate this kind of collaborative processes in which people that don't know each other before come together and they can bring their different skills and backgrounds and profiles and perspectives to develop ideas and projects. And of course, when we lacked this face-to-face encounter, we needed to experiment and to think in new things, trying to follow supporting these civic innovation initiatives that were arising everywhere when the pandemic and this emergency context arose. So the conversation in these first weeks of the lockdown happened very quickly with other initiatives in Spain that were like in the same situation, like trying to think what can we do to support citizen initiatives and to connect to each other. And especially there was one initiative started by one part of the Aragon government. Aragon is another region more in the north of Spain. And this initiative was called Frena la Curva. And it was devised as a digital platform where different local initiatives could be made visible and connect to each other. And especially there was one thing in this, Media Lab Prado very quickly joined this platform among many other collectives and organizations in all the national level. And an interactive map was created in which people could put their offers to help their neighbors, and also people could ask for help in any necessity. Yeah, you can see a picture of the map.
So the map was made by citizens. It's just a citizens' initiative.
Yes. So the map, the software that was used for the map is a software that already existed, which is called Usahidi. It's a software that was created some years ago in Kenya, in Africa, and it's being used worldwide to tackle natural catastrophes or other kinds of catastrophes, because it helps to put very, very local information, but to have a general map of the situation. So what citizens could do in this map is to put these announces of offering help or asking for help for very common things, like, for example, old people or more vulnerable people that were more risky.
And I understood it was also a digital initiative for food, right?
Yes. For example, you could. So there were people that were afraid of going out just to buy their food or their medicines because they felt very vulnerable. They were frightened by the virus. So people offered help for other people. Go and buy their food, go and buy their medicines, and bring them to the door of their homes. So that was a lot of initiatives like this happen. So yes.
So I'm looking to Marcia over here because she lived nearby Media Lab.
Yes. No, I wanted to say that in Spain there were lots of these kind of initiatives about solidarity within neighborhoods or people helping each other with this map. But also in my neighborhood, I saw people just offering their help for all kinds of things. So this is one of the things I thought were really beautiful. Also during the pandemic. No, and it's true, I lived across the street at Media Lab, so I know the place. I spent lots of hours on the terrace because you have a wonderful terrace as well.
Yes.
But at the same time, I never went in. I'm a bit ashamed to confess that. And it always stayed for me a bit of a mysterious place. So
why didn't you go in, Marcia?
I don't know. Yes. I didn't know what was happening there. I don't know.
Was it too formal or?
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well because this is a part of the city where you have many museums. So there's a lot. There are lots of cultural things to offer. The Museo del Prado is nearby. The Museo Reina Sofia, and I went there a lot. And I was thinking maybe they are announcing with bigger. Posters. I don't know what they have on offer than the Media Lab. But I wanted to ask you. So. How did you do it during the pandemic? How I think it's even more difficult to reach people if you cannot offer a physical place. So I was wondering how did you do this?
Yes. So yeah, of course, we needed to adapt all the ongoing programs we had at this time of the lockdown. And we tried to because we could have this kind of group and collaboration work online, which is not the same, but we tried to switch to the online sphere. And so after some experiences of adapting our programs to the online work, what we did is that together with the Department of Public Libraries in the Ministry of Culture, that like they have all the network of public libraries in Spain. We started a program which was called Distributed Citizen Laboratories, Citizen Innovation in Libraries and Other Cultural Institutions. That was the number of the program. And we did what we did is to try to think in a way in which we could help any small organization, institution in the local level to provide for citizens their own space for citizen collaborative experimentation and prototyping of projects to give a response to the pandemic.
Okay. So thank you for that insight. Ronald, next one is for you. During the months of lockdown, you also had to close the theater. How was that and how did that go?
Well, it was quite an impact because it was first we learned that we had to reduce our seat capacity. It was very unsure. The people who work at the office had to work from at home. And 1 or 2 days later, it was clear that we had to close the theater completely without knowing if it was for 1 to 2 weeks. And finally it was for 13 weeks, I believe. And after just a few days, we invented a way of doing something that seems theater, that comes very close to theater, because the essence, of course, of theater is a live person performing in front of another live person. But we found out a way to do it via Zoom online.
Yeah. And we have a video of Teatro Confinado, so let's watch that.
Yeah.
Con los ojos cerrados, penséis en un momento de vuestra vida en el que os sucediera algo que os cogiera absolutamente por sorpresa.
Un edificio entre cientos de urbanizaciones con piscina y al fondo veo el mar. De pequeño veraneaba aquí con mi familia en este apartamento. Pasábamos agosto entero jugando a las palas y bañándonos. Estamos en La Manga.
Amor, amor, amor. Aclamado por millones de moribundos. Dirá, amor, amor, amor. Entre el tisú estremecido de ternura dirá, paz.
Los bárbaros solemos realizar piezas, obras de teatro que trabajan en torno a la identidad.
Tendréis el poder real de experimentar una situación masificada, calurosa y lenta, del tipo infierno consumista, como algo no solo lleno de sentido, sino también sagrado.
Sí, el pollo, eso es. Este es nuestro pollo, menudo pollo. Relaja, relaja, Mari Carmen. Relajemos.
Hoy, si encendéis la cámara cuando yo os lo pida, sí que será una práctica BDSM. No tanto porque yo os lo haya pedido y hayáis aceptado, sino porque yo soy el que he pensado en ella.
Ronald, can you shortly tell us what did we see?
Yeah, you saw some fragments of different shows in the 13 weeks of the lockdown. We made 10 performances, 10 very different performances. Some of them were kind of a monologue of an actor speaking to the camera, as the Lorca texts you saw, or a play by Simon Stephens. Now you're seeing some images of our theatre, which is a former church. Other of the pieces of the Teatro Confinado, confined theatre, were specially made and used specifically the devices of the Zoom, of sharing images, sharing screen, using the comments in the chat so that the audience could give its reaction to the performers.
So that's how you work now, ever since the theater opened, right? You let people interact.
Yes, at this moment we do this kind of performances, but as well, since September, the theatre is open again, so we can also have performances in our venues with a reduced seat capacity, but still.
Yeah. So how many people do you accept in the theatre now?
In the theatre, we can have up to 120 in one venue, and in the other, I think it's 200 now.
Okay, wow. Yeah, the thing is, like, the pandemic turned everybody's life around, in the Netherlands, Spain, all over the world, of course. But did the crisis brought you anything positive so far, Ronald?
To the theatre, which is in a process of transformation, because since 1 year, no, almost 2 years, we have a new director who tries to transform the theatre in a more open theatre. We work with associated theatre makers. This moment of new languages has helped us to connect with other people. So that's a positive aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the financial part, of course, is very, very dark at this very moment. So we are not sure if the effect will really will be effective and visible in the theater when we can go on with our usual work.
Okay. Interesting. I will invite Maartje back to the conversation and Inma, because I'm interested for some final comments. Maartje, what stands out for you while you're listening to all these stories like Ronald, Inma? Yeah, can you share that with us?
Yes, it makes me happy in a way, because it shows that even in the most difficult times, there can such beautiful ideas. And well, the pandemic forced us to break with our routines.
Yeah.
But that also made us to reinvent ourselves. And also, I think in the culture sector, the same, and on a personal level as well. So maybe this is what I bring home from here.
Optimism.
Well, that's... there's also creativity that was sparking, that was bringing a bit of light in a really dark time.
Yeah, definitely. And also a lot of stuff were created last year. So that's a good, also from the cultural sector. I know a lot of people wrote like new music or books. We spoke about it earlier. But Inma, in your perspective, how should we move forward? What's the way to move forward? Can you tell something about that? Can you, like, your final statement?
Well, I agree, because I believe that we are facing a very important moment in history, and I think we have to take advantage of it. I want to thank this initiative, because that allow us to learn about experiences of other places, and in the cultural sector we see that we have more or less the same problems. No, I believe that the cultural sector has the challenge to live in the digital environment from a humanistic approach, and that respect fundamental rights and strengthens the social cohesion. I think this is the cultural power, and it's important to take advantage of that. And this development must be, I think that must be economic and social, and also take into account sustainability. And it's a great challenge, but also a great opportunity for the cultural sector. Furthermore, if in Europe, we have also the Next Generation this new program. Yeah. And I think that the cultural sector has to take advantage of that and promote the change. That is a big opportunity, not only for money, but also for real cultural policy, because I think we need, in this situation that colleagues are showing, and the new project and the new experiences, I think we need a new generation of cultural policy. This is a big moment, I think, in my opinion. I'm optimistic too.
That's good. That's good. Creating more possibilities, creating new jobs. Jobs were not yet here. So I hope that will happen in Spain. I hope that will happen in Europe and the rest of the world. Maartje, we're about to wrap up. Have you anything else to add to this convo?
Yeah, well, listening to Inma, I think maybe this is the value of culture, to be optimistic, to find positive elements in the world, while the rest of well, if you watch the news, for example, the times are heavy and you see a lot of suffering and hunger queues, etc. Yeah. But maybe culture and art can bring this spark of light in the darkness.
Beautiful last words of this last session. I hope we will come back one day with new series where we will have more social impact in the rest of the world. For now, I want to thank you, Maartje, for being here. Thanks a lot. Good luck the next couple of months. Inma, thank you for tuning in. Carmenchu, thank you. Good luck with your future work. Fernando, thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. Laura, peace. And Ronald, good luck with the theater. Soon as everything, is better and we can travel, Maatje, let's visit the place where you live, Media Lab, and go there.
Yes, please.
For sure, as soon as I can.
We got that on tape. For now, I would like to thank all the viewers for tuning in. I would like to thank DutchCulture, Pakhuis de Zwijger, for making these series possible. Please stay safe, everybody. My name is Yorgos Lazatis, and we are out. Peace.